Hey, Jody here with weldingtipsandtricks.com. A pretty weld is not always a good weld. Let's get into it. This short weld was made with a technique called the lay wire technique, meaning I just left the wire in the puddle. This weld, same thing, left the wire in the puddle but used pulse settings and just walked over the wire pulsing at 1 pulse per second. Looks very similar. This, the old standard dab method, where I just moved ahead, pause, dab wire, take the rod in and out of the puddle. I'm going to test them all today. I'm going to show you the arc shots, show you what they look like, show you what the final weld looks like, and then we're going to section, cut, polish, etch, and you're going to see a very big difference in the penetration. Now you can see here I'm only using about 91, 92 amps, and it's kind of a problem. I'm using a 1/8 filler. That's bigger than I should be using, which is just to illustrate the point that you can make a decent looking weld, but maybe it's a good weld and maybe it's not. You can't tell by looking. All right, that's the lay wire technique, just walking over a 1/8 rod. Now, 1 pulse per second, just walking over that rod but not doing any side-to-side movement. The rod is just too big. I would never use a 1/8 rod for a 1/8 thickness lap joint like this. But it's possible to do it and have it look halfway decent. Now these welds aren't anything to write home about, but they certainly look acceptable. Now we're going to show the old tried and true method, 120 amps, 20 CFH of argon, just using the dipping in and out. And actually, normally I probably even wouldn't use a 332 2.4 millimeter rod. I would go down to one size smaller, the 1/16. But this is okay. It's just a slightly too big rod. You gotta take it in and out of the puddle. You can't just leave it in the puddle for very long. It does take a bit of heat out of the puddle when you dab it in there. But it's working okay. And if you want to go all the way up to the edge, to the shoulder, it's actually a pretty good size rod for that, because you don't have to feed much rod in there to do that on 1/8 inch thick material. I'm watching the front of that puddle and I can see it go down to the root each time in between dabs, and that is a good thing. That's the benefit of the old dab method. So I'm going to section each of these, all 3 of these welds, do a little quick polish, just with 2-step polish down to a red Scotch-Brite. This is the lay wire straight current, no pulse. Quite a bit of lack of fusion in the corner there. Actually, it did better than I thought, but that's a good at least 20% lack of fusion in the corner. Now the lay wire pulse, where I just walked straight in a straight line over that 1/8 wire. That's a lot worse. If you really look at that closely, you can see quite a bit of lack of fusion there. Now this is the dab in and out, 332 filler, but watching each time, making sure the puddle flowed down into the bottom, into the root of that joint. Much better. So what are the takeaways from this video? You know, main one is a pretty weld is not always a good weld, but you knew that, right? But I think all of these methods could work. If I used maybe a smaller wire, more amperage, you could definitely get penetration into that root of the joint. It's not that lay wire is bad, it's just that it does have the possibility of chilling that bottom of the root, because it's like with that 1/8 inch filler, it was kind of like a telephone pole chilling that puddle down in the bottom of the root. It fused fine on the sides, nothing there to chill it, but it just lay wire is great sometimes, other times not. I like to see the front edge of that puddle on a fillet as I'm going along, so that I can determine my amperage. If it's not going into the bottom, I might need a little tighter arc, a little more amperage. I like to see that. That's why I like to dab, which is a tried and true technique. That's another takeaway. Sometimes the old school tried and true technique is best. Okay, let's take a quick look at the 3 things that I have seen in training welders that new welders seem to want to do wrong on TIG welding. Too long an arc, too much torch angle, and not shielding the hot tip of that rod with argon. So that rod gets oxidized and then it blobs into the puddle, and you got oxides floating around in the puddle, and things just don't come out well. They're not uniform. I'm tightening up the arc just a little bit now, but still not near tight enough. 100 amps is not quite enough to weld with this long arc. It's enough to weld this joint. It's just not enough to weld it really good with a long arc and too much torch angle and blobbing that rod in there like that. Now let's just do nothing different except tighten up the arc, and watch how much better everything goes. I had one little blob there, if you saw, that was just kind of keeping that tip a little too close. I want to keep it shielded with argon, but if you keep it too close in between, sometimes it'll blob up too. A quick announcement before the end of the video here. At the beginning of each year, I get my son Jake to put together the previous year's videos on a 4-disc set. They're ready now. This is a 2017 Volume 7, table of contents on the back. 4-disc set. I work really hard trying to get the best instructional arc shot that I can for each video. It's one thing to look at it on your phone with YouTube kind of throttling it back and on the resolution and everything. It's something entirely different to plug in a DVD and see that thing at full resolution on a big screen. Here's what I mean. All right, we're going into my living room now, and I'm going to sit in my recliner and let you look over my shoulder and walk through the menu on this thing. Disc 1 is aluminum. Mostly TIG, but some spool gun on there also. Now this is a video of a video, and you can see quite a bit of detail here. And the cool thing about a big screen like this and a DVD player, it's very easy to pause, rewind at different speeds, or fast forward at different speeds. See exactly what you want, watch it over and over again. I know a lot of instructors use these for that very reason. Disc 2 is TIG. I tested a whole bunch of techniques on TIG steel, pulse, no pulse, things like that. Walking the cup is a very popular thing for students to get into pipe welding. I start out by showing this little fillet weld T-joint here to get used to walking the cup, but then also hooked up some round stuff to simulate pipe. This is the technique, just kind of a figure eight. It's like walking a 55-gallon drum across the floor. I explain that in detail on the video. And again, this is a video of a video, and it's just crazy how crisp it comes out on the big screen. Disc 3 is stick, MIG, and flux core. Tested pulling versus pushing. If you're going to do MIG videos, you kind of got to address that thing. And pulling versus pushing on short circuit MIG, tested them back to back, and there were some subtle differences, but you'll see on the video. Also compared it to a 332 7018 on the same thing at 90 amps. And I like that rod a lot, but you know, it's always good to test everything. You learn a lot by testing. I do quite a bit of cutting and etching on these DVD videos. Disc 4 was projects, just a handful of projects in 2017. This is a fire pit done at JD's shop using dual shield flux core for most of it. Let the helper do most of the welding. And it was just a fun day. If owning a copy of this DVD makes sense for you, if you want to up your game, you want to invest in yourself, go to weldmonger.com. There's a link in the description of this video. It'll take you to the right page, and add it to the cart. Hey man, thanks for your support. We'll see you next week.